Hello, everyone. The session will start shortly. We appreciate your patience as we give attendees a couple of minutes to join.
I love the sound of silence. It's fantastic while we wait for people to join.
That is a good song.
I always have a song in my head, Nathan, so it's not ever
I
silent.
do, I do too, but I'm pretty sure that the lyrics are copyrighted, and I don't want us to get our webinar pulled because, Nathan decides to sing top 40, you know?
Top 40 from 2003.
Oh, and but that's what I'm saying. I don't think anybody wants to see me sing Dua Lipa either. That, that
No,
probably that probably is not going to be fantastic for anyone.
no.
Even though now for all those people that are joining, now they have that mental image of me as Dua Lipa, and that's probably going to haunt their dreams.
Yeah.
Oh boy, this is
Too
gonna be
bad
great.
they don't remember stuff from 2003. What does that say about me? So,
Well, there are people that I run into that were not born in 2003, and so that's the other problem. I am not hip with my kids. I can tell you that much. That looks like a good crowd. That's awesome.
yeah, I think that sounds like that's maybe a good time to get started. All right, folks, let's get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, State of Kubernetes, Trends, Truths, and Survey Surprises, hosted by Portworx by Pure Storage. So we are excited to share some exclusive data from two of our latest reports, which capture the current pulse of the cloud native ecosystem and Kubernetes adoption. In the next few minutes, we will give you an unvarnished look at what Kubernetes experts from Fortune 500 to cutting edge startups are all actually doing and the challenges that they're facing, especially around mission critical applications and data that they're running on Kubernetes. So thank you for joining us today. Let's go ahead and get started. Our agenda today is pretty straightforward. We will dive into the two research surveys that I talked about and that we conducted. And we're going to start looking at what the data is telling us. And this is a good quantitative analysis of what the data is telling us. And then we'll transition into more of a qualitative perspective from us and what we have been hearing from customers and partners, particularly at KubeCon event, which happened just a couple weeks ago, and all of the customer takeaways that we were able to distill from the many conversations that we had. And finally, we'll open the floor to questions. Please use the Q&A box throughout the session, and we will address your questions towards the end. And if we're not, and if we run out of time, someone from Portworx and Pure will be able to get back to you within 24 to 48 hours for sure. All right, let's go ahead and kick this off. I am Kamala Desiga. I don't look much like my picture there, and I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing for Portworx. Nathan?
That giant noggin in the middle, that's me. I'm Nathan Wood. I lead our cloud native architects for North America, US Federal APJ. I'm based out of Atlanta. I've been with Pure for 8 years, and very happy to be here today. Thank you, Kamala, for the invitation. And now on to my peer, who apparently is using a picture from 1985, before he was gray, John Owings.
And that's not that long ago, that picture. The John Owings, I am the global director for cloud native strategy. I also lead our cloud native architect team globally. And yes, that picture is pre working with Nathan Wood directly. And now you can see the gray has come. So, like, it has not been 40 years, like Nathan has said. We have worked together directly for just a few years now. You can see how fast things have changed since then.
That's how I grade on people, Kamala. So just be aware. The next one of these that we do, there'll be a lot more grays. You'll be a little more haggard. It's just kind of the way it goes. And my head will actually get bigger. And the next picture, it will just be a square cube of my face. And while you two have great headshots, so that's what we're looking
It's like a
forward to.
helium balloon.
It just keeps going. It just keeps going.
I will have to catch up on the gray part though. So something to look forward to. All right, so the data that we're pulling from the two reports that we were talking about is the Voice of Kubernetes Experts report. And we've run this a few times. And this time, the topical focus of this survey was the future of VM workloads. We ran this summer of this year, 2025. And so we had 523 qualified participants. We'll get into the demographic makeup of it in just a second. We did this partnering with Dimensional Research. Second survey we're pulling from is really fresh, and it's about 2 weeks old. We ran it at a KubeCon in mid-November, and we are doing this webinar in December. And so the survey responses, similar number here, but quite a large number here as well, which is about 559 participants. And these are exclusively Kubernetes users for both of them, right? So what is the data actually telling us? So let's dive in. Of course, we're always going to start with who did we survey, and that's good information to know all the time. So the Voice of Kubernetes Experts report did go for companies with the number of employees that are 500 and above, so not teeny tiny startups. So most of these people have a sizable development team. A lot of these folks, you can see there's the good spread between a decision maker and an actual practitioner, but we did survey folks that are both VMware users as well as Kubernetes users, like folks who made a transition over from VMware. The survey that we did at KubeCon, the second survey, was actually more general Kubernetes attendee survey and not necessarily looking for whether or not they were running VMs on Kubernetes. So with that background, let's look at industry information. So one of the questions that we talked about is, what is your actual footprint? Because we kind of wanted to get a pulse of like how much Kubernetes is actually getting used over here. So our Voice of Kubernetes experts report actually said 82%. Any surprises here for you, Nathan and John? Is this what you're seeing from customers as well?
Yeah, I mean, every customer wants to be cloud native. Every customer knows that that's kind of the future of where things are going. And so no one says, "Oh, I want to develop for mainframe." Right? I mean, it's just that's not going to be a response that we're going to get. And so everybody wants to be there. I think that there's a general consensus in the world that cloud native is the way to go. This isn't a fad, right? It's going to be something that is the foundational elements for everything moving forward. And I think because of things like flexibility and capability and the ability to do things in just about anywhere, whether it's in a data center or in the cloud, wherever you may go. And so I think that having those cloud native applications and deploying them in that way, they understand the benefits. And I think there's also a C-level push that drives people in that direction, right? Because there's costs associated and different things like that. And it shows up in the in-flight magazine in first class where CEOs fly. So they get that data, right? And so I think that from that perspective, everybody wants to be cloud native. I think what's interesting is when you look at that first question, right? How would you describe your company's overall current application footprint? And only 5% of the respondents. Now, these are, again, you saw from the previous slide, these are pretty significant organizations, and only 5% is cloud native. So as much as 82% want to be there, only 5% have made it today. And they're looking for those tools, those techniques, those capabilities that allow that 5% to grow. And to be able to get bigger. And I think that was my big takeaway, is that everybody wants to be there, but only 5% of respondents are actually doing it.
And no one is admitting they're going to keep everything the way they're, so you see the zero, I look at the zero.
Yeah.
right?
Zero. No
All new
tradition.
all new applications will be traditional. Well, however we define traditional, which whatever that means, but zero are saying we're going to keep doing things the way we're doing them. So that's the way that I look at it.
Exactly. I think the 5% was striking. First of all, I'm surprised that 5% are all applications are cloud native platforms. I would imagine that these folks don't have a whole lot of legacy that they're carrying. When I say legacy, they probably aren't coming from the world of VMware. They're probably born cloud native, presumably. Most seem to be in that, uncomfortable middle where, some of their application estate happens to be cloud native, but they are carrying a lot of, um, as I said, traditional in quotes. And though whatever that is not cloud native could range anywhere from, 50-year-old application to your old application, presumably, basically non-traditional. But the interesting thing to me is, I guess, the desirability aspect of it, meaning the investment plans for the future. Majority are looking at Kubernetes and cloud native application development as sort of the future and the destination for themselves. And that is absolutely stunning. Most of us who started out in the cloud native journey maybe 10 years ago, and you guys were also in the industry about that long. Uh, I don't, we saw so many fads come and go. I was surprised that this one took, and it seems to have done it. Seems people seem to be doing well on it.
I think it's the future, and people recognize that at this point, and so we're going to continue to see that growth trend.
The other thing that we're seeing, I think, if you're not able to run mission critical applications on it, I think chances are pretty low that a company would essentially be betting their future on it. So this particular question, how would you describe the applications your company is building using cloud native platforms? Interestingly enough, tier 0 and tier 1, where almost half mission critical applications with strict requirements for performance, uptime, and zero data loss are running on cloud native platforms. This number was actually quite stunning for me. Thoughts from you guys?
I look at the 80% in tier two.
Mhm.
And what that tells me, having run shops for many years, that's the eat your own dog food phase, right? Where you're developing your alerting, reporting, all the other things that you're using for IT monitoring, internal stuff. And that's where they're deploying it. That's why there's 80% in that tier two category, where it's not the company jewels that are in the tier 0 and 1, but it's all the stuff that does the work, right? It's all the things that are monitoring and alerting and all the other stuff that is doing the work on the back end. And I'm not surprised to see that 80% there, because everybody starts in that framework and then moves into tier 0 and tier 1 when they've got a really good understanding of what that looks like. And also, not only from an operational and a technical perspective, but from a cost perspective, which is the other. I know. My guess is we're probably going to get into that, because Kamala doesn't. She brings the full spectrum of stuff when we do these things. But that 80% to me really stands out in that there's a lot of folks that are doing this, and on the back end in their own IT shop, in the nuts and bolts of the data center or the cloud, they're actually using this in order to be able to drive those initiatives.
Yeah, well, mission critical is high. Like I see that 80% saying that mission critical is going to grow, right?
Mm.
So while that like 58% like is good, like and since we've been doing this since 2017 was my first KubeCon, it's changed. Before back then it was like, hey, we might have a little bit of tier 0, and that's huge, 58%. So absolutely agree that is shock, but also that 80% pointing that it's going to get bigger over time.
Yeah.
That kind of makes me happy. Like we're doing the right thing. Like I like what we're doing. It's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, the next bit here is about the cloud environments, or the way companies are distributing their workloads. So we have the question, approximately how much of your organizational footprint cloud native technology is deployed in a public cloud and how much is on-prem? Interestingly, we have 87% running hybrid workloads. Thoughts on this, John and
Yeah,
Ethan?
come on, Kamala. This slide should come with that newsflash.
Yeah,
87% of customers running in hybrid mode. I mean, it's not news at this point. Everybody has to have a cloud position. They have to have something that they're working with. They've got their partner, whether it's Azure, Google, or AWS. It could be anybody, right? Who they're working with. But they recognize that, again, they have to have that hybrid model. And I think that the real meat of this question is, how are you doing it? Is it that you have a burn down spend that you're having to find ways to be able to leverage it? Or is it a truly integrated hybrid program where you're able to move workloads between clouds, multi-cloud vendors, the
mm,
on-prem component? That's the real meat and potatoes of this question. I don't think it should be, oh, do your organization have a footprint in cloud native technology? Of course they do. Like everybody does, right? That's why so many things were impacted by the AWS outage and the Azure outage, right? It's because they have a presence. And so I think it's more about how are you leveraging that? What I'm surprised about is that it's still 12% is it's all in the public cloud. Like
yeah.
that's all they're doing. And that's the only number on here that I find hard to believe that somebody said, oh yeah, it's totally all public cloud. We bet our entire business on, insert cloud vendor here and they're going to deliver us, right? So I think that, again, that's the 12% is the surprising number, not the 87%.
And I think the secular trends around um, sovereign clouds and trying to data repatriation. Um,
Repatriation, right?
Repatriation. Oh my
There
God,
we
thank you.
go. That we
There, we
got it.
got it. It's too early.
Woo!
It's too early. So given those trends, I think certainly it seems like that 12% is a number to watch, I guess, for us as well, because I am surprised by how high that number is myself as well.
There's no way to follow up Nathan on that, so we'll just go on to the next one.
And then this question was more about the use cases themselves, right? What are you actually running on Kubernetes? So this was about, what types of data intensive use cases. After all, we're a data company, so we have to ask that question. Um, Interestingly, or maybe not so interestingly, 98%. Again, a very, very obvious response. I was happy to see this, so we're kind of in the right space here. But what was interesting to see maybe is maybe the types of use cases that they are running here. And 60% AI or ML applications or capabilities on Kubernetes is a rather high number, which it's unclear whether that's production. I'm guessing not, but certainly that is a large number of people or a large percentage of the survey takers have been at the very least experimenting with AI or ML workloads on Kubernetes.
It's huge because 6 or 7 years ago, people they were still saying you can't do this, don't do it, it's the
Yeah,
worst, right? And the fact that everyone said no, we're going to get the same advantages we get for, which is kind of, I'm cheating and looking ahead on the next slide, but like we're going to only run stateless, and that now that 2% are saying we do not run any is it's big to show that the benefits of cloud native it was inevitable that you were going to put data in there, right? Like to say that it's only for web front ends is I'm
right.
not gonna say crazy talk, but it was a little naive, I think, to think that that's how people were only going to run things.
So yeah,
Narrow minded, right? They had the blinders on, and now the blinders are off, and now you're seeing the explosive growth. And and Jo, I don't know if you saw the same thing when I looked at this. The first thing that struck me was you got databases, you got real time analytics, and then you got AI/ML. And I'm wondering how much of those first two columns are tied to that third column in order to be
mm,
able to drive AI and all the things that we've got going on, especially with Vector and all the other things that are out there. So I really wonder, like, of that 69%, how many of that is tied to column three? And what does that really look like? Because I think a lot of the stuff that we're seeing push into that is related to AI and ML in some way. And that's what's driving some of these real-time analytics and databases. Because I don't know anybody that is not trying to figure out a way to have AI, ML, developing something to be able to support their analytics framework and derive, either based around an AI footprint or derive data from their analytics environment to be able to drive those AI initiatives. And so I think that probably those first three are really kind of in cooperation with one another. Now, I'm sure there's a database here or there that doesn't incorporate AI, but a lot of that second one, I mean, most analytics packages that I look at these days have an AI component, and so it's driven around that too. So again, just observations there.
Their marketing teams have at least put AI in the name by now.
Yeah, they got to have they have to. It's mandatory you insert AI in there somewhere.
Well, it's right in the center of this one. But you're right, Nathan, actually, because take a look at this one. This is from the event survey. What type of workloads are you primarily running on Kubernetes? You're right on the whole AI component. That's number 3 over here as well. And to the point you were making earlier, Jo, a lot of the cloud native um, history sort of had the 12-factor app and being stateless and things like that. But actually, of course, even stateless application, you still had to store state somewhere and your session information somewhere. And like it just was different architecture. You still had to put your data somewhere. And so there was always a database in the picture. So again, um, a database or a caching system or something like that. So while even though we see here architecturally stateless apps are the majority, there is significant adoption over the course of Kubernetes itself sort of evolving to support more complex stateful applications like databases, queues, and supporting persistent storage. And now, of course, the emerging interest in AI ML and all of the related analytics and pipelines that Nathan, you were referring to. Clearly, there's a huge shift, hence the 98% towards running data-intensive, mission-critical applications on Kubernetes with a ton of data and state associated with them, right?
The other thing, and just to put this out there, Kamala, the other thing is that virtual machines, the VMs on Kubernetes and the KubeVirt, only at 24% at the bottom. Mm. I think when you go to a place like KubeCon and you ask questions like this, you're going to get the stack that you see. It's like going to the state fair and asking who likes corn dogs, right? Your audience is going to dictate what the answer and the response to that question is. And if you go to the state fair and you ask who likes salads, right? You're going to get a different answer. And I think that virtual machines number is actually probably higher than what it's denoted here, but we have to remember our audience. It's not that smooth 20%, 20%, 20%, 18%, 21% spread that we had for the voice of Kubernetes. This is people that showed up to the booth that we asked questions of. And, KubeCon tends to draw the more technical folks that are really focused on those first area, stateless apps, right? That's what they're developing for. That's where they've traditionally been. And so we're going to get a little bit more slant in that direction. We're definitely going down the corn dog path versus the salad path, right? So we just got to take that into account.
I like corn dogs.
I like corn dogs too. I'm actually kind of hungry right now. So
yeah. Oh man, I'm going to get a corn dog after this.
Uh-oh. Look what you did, Nathan. All right. So this one is about, again, since we were talking about data intensive applications, like management of persistent storage and databases. However, despite the intense desire to be running those types of workloads, does seem to present customers with a lot of challenges, right? So what are the biggest challenges your customers facing? We see a combined 47% appear. Security being the number one. I don't think I've ever seen a survey to Kubernetes users where security wasn't their number one challenge.
Well, you're also told you have to answer that, right? Like, hey, we shifted left. You have to put security into everything you do. So, like, if you don't answer that, your CISO is gonna, lay off your entire department. So you have to
pretty much, yeah.
But it's still the number one. It's almost like I feel like even if you don't include it as an option, people will still write in security in the other part and it would still be number one.
Well,
So,
and security is important because there's data there. Like, so if we have 40%, 7% data,
mm,
and observability creates data as well. And like security should be the biggest challenge because, hey, if there was no data and nobody cared about what was in the app, then, yeah, you don't have to secure it. But if it actually has customer data, credit card numbers, transactions, whatever, right? Like that's important. So security will always be there.
yeah,
So
you're
hold
right.
on, Jay. You're saying that state agencies from foreign countries don't want to steal my brilliant API code, and they're really interested in credit card numbers and customer information? Mind blown. I thought they were after my APIs, man.
Definitely the ones that you publicly publish, yeah,
Oh,
they want to steal those
absolutely.
too.
Yeah, those are the ones. The Kamala, the one I thought was interesting was the 42% of vendor lock-in.
Mm,
That continues to
mm.
be a challenge for people as they go through this. Again, as you put in more data into the system, then you have to really pay attention to that aspect of it because of who you choose for that back end architecture, whether that cloud vendor, on-prem, whatever it is. That can really be an issue moving forward, right? And so I think that vendor lock-in, we'll see it'll never be security at 72%, but I think we'll continue to see that climb up, just because that becomes a bigger concern for how do I stay mobile? How do I keep mobility in my data? How do I keep mobility in my ability to choose who I want for my cloud provider and some of those other things? And I think vendor lock-in will continue to be, hey, I'm limited by the services of my cloud provider, and I need this, and they don't offer that, and I have to do these things. And I think that's one of the key things that's kind of limiting for customers, and they're going to, as they do more of data engaged applications, they're going to see more vendor lock-in issues, and they're going to run into more of that. So I would wager that when we do this a year from now and we do the updated one, I bet that vendor lock-in creeps up even higher as those services really come to bear for customers that are moving their data into the environment.
Very interesting insight. Very interesting insight. Now, so the follow-up to our KubeCon attendees, which was really to think about, because we were talking about how difficult it is for managing their data and storage, what aspect of it do you have workflows that kind of support, um, for developers that kind of support an easy consumption of data infrastructure for them? Um, One of the discoveries there is, of course, it's going to be a big challenge because majority of the teams we're finding are not fully automated, right? The most common method that's sort of swung to the top here is that the developers are managing their own storage and data services manually. So I was quite perturbed by that. Any thoughts you guys want to offer here? As a former developer, that is something I would not have wanted to do.
Yeah, but commonly, you know how it goes. I mean, it's the cobbler's kids scenario where the cobbler's kids always have the worst shoes, right? Because you're busy when you're building the shoes, you're making them for people that are going to buy it. And so a lot of those times they're the last ones to get looked at to be able to provide automation and support and unification. And they'd love to have better internal tools, but their production time needs to be dedicated to servicing their customers. And so they don't have those capabilities, and they need a support system in order to be able to deliver those things and do it seamlessly and in a way that doesn't require them to build the things internally. And they have an organization or whether it's a support infrastructure or it's a platform or if it's applications that deliver those services for them, they can't go and build that same level of automation internally that they have for customer facing type of things.
Right. And I guess unfortunately, in the case of internal development platforms or platform engineering teams that actually want to do right by their developers, even in those scenarios, certainly seems like platform engineering was a big topic for the last 2 years at KubeCon, with developers kind of being the primary constituents. Presumably, it's going to be, when you have enough of software automation, maybe AI is going to be the next primary constituent as the AI developer or co-developer. Um, either way, it certainly seems like the automation has not been pulled into the standard platform engineering workflows. It seems like the automation is still ticket based and actually performed separately outside of the platform engineering team by storage teams in quite a few companies. And only a really small fraction, which is like the bottom two bars, we see about a quarter that add up to about a quarter where you developers even have self-service. Um, and then even fewer actually have fully automated policies for protection, mobility, compliance, and all of that kind of baked into overall workflows. That is definitely a minority of companies, which is unfortunate, even though that was sort of touted as the dream and the final goal for a lot of the platform engineering teams.
It's still a dream. They just haven't found a good way to get there. And I
Yeah.
think that's, I mean, everybody wants to do more with less and be more efficient, but you have to have the path to get there. And if it requires you to build the path to get there, well, then you're back at square one.
Yeah. Where do you see our customers sort of landing on this one on our chart? Do you think that they are closer to the final stage here? Like if you have
I think so. I think so. Just because they're when you're a customer of Portworx, and this is more plug than anything else. I'm trying not to make it that way, but when you're a customer of Portworx, it kind of builds that in, right? And so you don't need a platform team, a storage team, and several other teams, and a a perk ticket in order to be able to get stuff done, right? You can go in and you can adjust these things as needed within fences and be able to drive those things forward. And I think that's ultimately, am I talking too much? Is that way? Is that the wrap it up, that I need to move on to the next slide?
Oh, no,
I'm
no, no,
sorry.
no. It's more my pen accidentally touching my
Okay,
keyboard.
no worries. I'll wrap it up. And so anyway, I just think that those things are important. And for our customers, we build that platform into it, so they have that stepping stone that gives them that capability, and we provide capabilities for them to be able to deliver self service. And on top of the self service, because of how we're unified, right, a unified data platform, you can set your standards for data protection and DR and business continuity and all those other things across multiple clouds and have the same SLAs for all of them without having to code it into the application, right? And so again, I'm not trying to turn this into a pitch, but I think that those are valuable for these folks, and that's one of the reasons why it's so important to really understand how this metric comes out in your shop to see how you can position those things to benefit the whole team.
Absolutely. Sorry for that little side trip there where we had to talk about the product and not necessarily the survey findings themselves. But that said, the other thing besides, I guess, the general discomfort for customers or platform engineering goals and everything aside, there are other maybe more existential reasons why someone might be wanting to kind of consolidate some of their workloads and some of their storage needs onto Kubernetes. And that's something that we saw a lot of at both KubeCon and also really coming through quite heavily in the survey. So the question here was, why is your company moving away from VMware? Because a lot of the questions that we received internally were, hey, we need to be off of VMware. And came about right around the time after the Broadcom acquisition. There were some changes made to the pricing and the licensing model that the customers of Broadcom were experiencing. So this question was included in the survey, I think, for the first time this year. And you can see that cost pressure is clearly standing out this time around. Any thoughts on this, Nathan and Gia?
I
No
always have
talk
thoughts,
here.
but I feel like I spoke first in all the other ones, so I want Jo
Yeah,
to have an
yeah. He's gonna let
opportunity.
me talk first, but I think I mean, the cost is what's making people examine what they're doing. But the modernization initiative, so that really is the like path towards like, hey, if we're gonna change, that's why those numbers are close, I think. This is my opinion, right? Is that those numbers are close because, hey, if we're gonna change, what are we gonna do? Like, are we gonna take these apps and refactor them into containers? Are we just gonna move them over? So, yeah, I mean, it's not a huge light bulb that went off here is that, oh, why are you moving off? Yeah, the price went up. Yeah. I think a lot of people realized that there was a risk that they had built in, that they had everything tied to one single hypervisor vendor. And
Mhm.
so they're looking at ways to at least diversify, reduce the risk. But obviously the cost pressure made everyone go, "Hey, what should we do now?" Um, yeah, pretty self-explanatory, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
agreed. Agreed. What Jo talked about with diversification and vendor lock-in, again, we talked about that previously, right?
Yeah.
And vendor lock-in, and this is becoming even more of a pressure here in that, we basically looked to VMware for 20 plus years of being the sole virtualization provider in the data center, and we didn't think twice about having a single vendor. But we had two server vendors, two storage vendors, two networking vendors. There were probably two different groups that clean the data center, right? But we had one virtualization provider and didn't think twice about it. So I think that that third column is telling as well, and it's not just cost. Cost is a byproduct, but it's also the kind of the blinders have been pulled off, and now we're looking at this and going, oh, I now see the risk here because of pricing and some of these other things, but I have to look for alternatives.
Yeah. And I think the interesting takeaway for me, as someone who's kind of been around in the open source ecosystem for a while now, which is that is exactly the value uh, platforms like Kubernetes actually offer. I mean, going from one proprietary vendor to another VM proprietary vendor is not necessarily the right solution here because like it basically sets up the same dynamics again, right? And so I think this is where Kubernetes and the giant ecosystem that kind of comes with it is so attractive for folks. And hence, I guess the very first couple of questions that we talked about, do you want to go cloud native and do you want to be on Kubernetes? We're coming up such high numbers for the as sort of future plans and the general consolidation happening on that platform. Um, but even as Kubernetes sort of starts to assimilate a lot of that, a lot of those workloads, the immediate question and the immediate job at hand happens to be uh, the strategic reduction of VMware usage here by customers, which of course we have been seeing a lot of as a very direct goal of most of our customer conversations. Anything that you guys want to add over here?
I think that people are exploring, obviously, you kind of said this in the last slide too, is a way to get in, not go to another toll road with no exits, as a super smart man
Mm-hmm.
once said.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that stands out to me here, so it may not be, hey, we're going to completely stop using VMware, but we need to diversify. But that management is higher on the proactively reduce, um, already, you know what I mean? Already stopped, intend to stop, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a bigger part of the proactively reduce, there is just, to me, like that shows that they strategically, companies are looking at it. It may not have reached the people that are actually doing the work as much. Obviously, everyone's a part of this journey, but you can see that there's still a push strategically, probably from the directors and managers to do this.
I thought I agree with Jo because I think it's funny that both in the management and in the front line, the number of proactively reduced is the exact same percentage. As if somebody was sitting next to them while they were filling this out, and the leader was saying, "Yeah, we're proactively reducing," and then they looked at the technical guy, and the guy was like, we're proactively reducing. And I think that that's the kind of pressure that we see in that environment that, pricing is driving that. It's definitely not capability because VMware is an extremely capable platform, but it's these other things of risk and cost that have been introduced as new features. And those are the things that are really pushing people back.
Yeah, and I think that, and also kind of not necessarily knowing, will they be part of the group of customers that VMware chooses to raise prices on they might have escaped or they might have kind of bought themselves some time. But what's going to happen 2 years down the line, with 3 years down the line, because you're kind of got the same dynamics going on over there. So from a management perspective, and if, as a budget owner, you are going to be really concerned about that because you want your budget going towards things that are adding value to the company and sort of growing your bottom line and revenue, as opposed to kind of being in that maintenance mode. And you can also see, I guess, from a practitioner perspective, it's a technology that you're used to, you like it, you're familiar with it, that's what your skill set's based on. You've got your career kind of on it. And you can see a reluctance, I guess I would be reluctant to potentially move off of things that I know, and I'd be wary of new stuff. But I think the urgency kind of being a little more top down rather than bottoms up is definitely a great call out here, Nathan and JL. And yet, I'm going to let you guys talk about this one, which is VMware migrations are still more challenging than expected. What do you guys have to say about that?
It's not magic, right? Like rainbow goes across the screen. It's not magic. I
Agreed.
don't see anything huge here. But other than
Yeah.
yes, people, there's a realistic thing to this.
Yeah,
You need time. It takes time to do this. It is not a next Thursday we're going to go ahead and do that migration. That's not how it works. And so, I think there were some expectations from folks that that's how it works, and it is more complicated than that. But it's not so complicated that it can't be done. And I think that's the other key is that giving it the respect that it's due from a time perspective is important, but not it's not the insurmountable unmovable object that you can't get done. It's just a matter of aligning the team the right way, getting the right folks on your squad from an external perspective with different vendors and partners and that kind of thing, and then go to town. But it definitely requires planning, it requires preparation, and it requires time.
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Now, I think a little bit of what we talked about around skills gap and what some of the challenges are for folks to actually move to Kubernetes. I think that is coming through loud and clear on this particular question, which is on the right side, you can see what challenges does your organization face with VMs on Kubernetes. Skills gap, as we just talked about, is the number one hurdle that folks have to clear. And you can also see on the left side here that the skills gap is actually kind of a result of the fact that the two platforms are in fact being run by two different teams, where you have VMs on Kubernetes is kind of run in some cases by the platform team, and there are in other companies it is run by the traditional infrastructure team. And I think that a lot of that has to do with how I guess teams are organized, but it also might just be a career rejigger or a team kind of reinventing and repositioning themselves in their platform. Anything to add here, NGO?
I want to buy a corn dog for the we don't face any challenges people.
Yeah. They definitely I want to hire those people.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I think that we had a healthcare customer, and we were talking to you about this this exact kind of commentary, and they said, listen, we have people that came out of college and joined the hospital 16 years ago, and the only thing they know is VMware because that's what we've taught them. And, that they're going to have to learn a new thing after 16 years. And that's a big deal, right? And so the skills gap is real. And again, it's one of those things that is not insurmountable. But you have to have the right partnerships. You have to have the right team in place. And you have to have people that, want to, engage in a new skill set. And that title of VM admin is not as desired in the industry, right? Not just in the organization, but in the industry as much as it used to be. And that having an expanded background of services that you can provide it's good for your resume, it's good for your professional background, and it's good for companies. And so it's getting everybody on the same page about how to fill that skills gap. And I think that's the key.
Absolutely. Now, these next two questions, I think we're going to leave for as a takeaway for folks who are going to go ahead and download the full report. Let's move into this next section around the KubeCon event and some of the customer conversations that we will have at the event. Was there anything, Gio, that was there a conversation that particularly stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, talking to, we did the VM on K8's day, and talking with the fireside chat with one of our customers who's been doing this for a long time, and kind of talking about what they're doing moving forward. And one of the super interesting things is they want everything to be driven by software, right? Like a pull request, boom, there's a cluster with storage, with the, whether it's in different clouds or on-prem, right? That's the goal that they're building for. And so it was an interesting conversation to see that, and then see the follow-up questions from other customers to that customer, um, or other people at the session, not customers, but like, and then having them, ask questions about how to do that and what to do. And everyone wants that. Like, they don't want everything's not it's not moving towards a more manual process. It's moving towards a more software driven process, even for the infrastructure.
Yeah. Nathan, you had a conversation about VMs um, with several customers, and I think there was one customer that actually started to run VMs on Kubernetes that you were talking to, and I actually included them here. Do you want to?
Yeah, Victor. Victor's a great dude. So Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama. That's close to my heart and also close to me geographically, right? One state away. And so they were actually leveraging Rev. So they were using Rev in that environment, and then they were basically making the transition because Rev was retired, and making that transition. They were looking for something that would not only support their Linux virtualization, but would also provide stuff for VMware deployment. So they're slowly doing some things around VMware, and they wanted something that would support both workloads potentially and provide a singular platform and architecture that they could combine to in the future. And so that great folks. And here you talk about, it's not no stereotypes, but it's Alabama, right? It's healthcare. And here's some folks that are being very proactive in what they're doing and how they're looking at this technology of not only today to solve an immediate problem with Rev, but how do they focus this and deploy it, with a future thinking, view of what can we do in order to be able to offer a VMware alternative in the environment where we can have a singular platform that will accommodate everything. So Victor and his crew were there. We had a customer advisory board while we were there as well. We had some other things, and I had multiple conversations with other folks. And the thing that was amazing to me, just in general conversation, I know we wanted to talk about Victor, but just a general overview, was the number of people that we had talking about infrastructure related to modern Virt compared to last year at Salt Lake City, right? So at KubeCon Salt Lake, that was still kind of relatively new concept, and so we had people talking about it, but there was a fervor this year around this concept. And from our customer advisory board to the day zero event that Jo was talking about, to the conversations in the booth, to the presentations that we did, all of those things, everybody was really interested in that topic of conversation, and it kept coming up over and over again.
Yeah, and I think I was especially pleased with the results that Victor and team were getting. What was that? There was something about making one of the as part of the migration, I think they were able to go 10x faster. I
Yeah, see now, Kamala, you're just teasing for the YouTube video of this that came from the Cube that folks can go watch. But yeah, if you have a second, go look up this interview. It's on YouTube. You can go see it there. But It's a great interview. It talks about the benefits that they saw in data acceleration and how they were able to increase the performance related to migration. And also there was some stuff in there about their CSI and how they were leveraging the CSI previously and the delta there. So there's a lot of really great stuff. But again, I could talk about these guys and Victor personally for an hour, and I know that we only have so much time. But go and find this interview, and you can hear all about, in Victor's words, not mine, basically of how they benefited from this environment and what overall positive trends they were seeing in their shop in general.
Yeah. And I think I was struck really also as part of the conversation just how tightly they watch their budget because I believe they are structured as a nonprofit, one of the few Blue Cross Blue Shields that are nonprofit. And I think they really watch their bottom line. And so it was in a way that essentially are able to pass on savings either to customers um, or just in general try to provide low cost healthcare. So
I mean, the only person I know that doesn't watch their bottom line is Jo, right? I mean, he's just got that rich guy money, and he doesn't watch his bottom line. But that's true of every customer, right? Every customer, whenever it's one of the things I ask at the beginning of presentations when I go and do this in public, is I say, okay, who's got the unlimited budget here, right? And no one does, and so everybody is looking to make that penny stretch. They don't make pennies anymore. Sorry, make that nickel stretch a little bit further than what it did, last year or the year before, while prices for everything continue to go up and we face inflation and other things like that. And so again, everybody's looking at a path except for Jo. Jo's got unlimited cash. He's amazing.
I eat corn dogs, man. I watch my budget.
That's why he's got the unlimited cash. He's just died of corn dogs.
Oh, it's so healthy.
that could work for a lot of people then.
Uh,
Okay, so actually, the CSI was a very interesting point that you brought up because the session that really struck me as part of the KubeCon sessions that I watched, and I think it can be really important to a lot of our customers and like folks on the platform just in general. This one was by the Red Hat team, and the session was called CSI Untangled, right? And it was presented by these two folks from the Red Hat pre-sales team, and the topic itself is focused on something we love, and that's KubeVirt. And in their role, they're dealing with a lot of customers who are performing VM migrations and doing storage integrations for those VM migrations. And they had some pretty good insights, particularly regarding the common pitfalls and how to evaluate CSI drivers, which comes from kind of their practical experiences with customers running real world Kubernetes environments, right? So they started explaining a little bit about what a CSI is. It's not the TV show. It turns out that it is a standard spec for an API between storage and Kubernetes, which acts kind of like the CSI acts as the universal translator shim for managing storage for the platform, right? And so they talked about a couple of improvements from 2 years ago, acknowledging the fact that this was not a very good implementation in the past, and now get into kind of several pitfalls, even in the current variation of this, where, one is that there are significant differences in the capabilities across the different vendors that are providing CSIs that are sort of more storage for their particular storage option, which of course leads to that inconsistent developer experience. And we had that earlier survey question result, which showed up that everybody kind of has their own workflow. It sits outside of the platform engineering experience. So there are consequences to having that not be a standardized approach. The speaker here also recommends something a little more insidious here, which is that the testing of CSI can sometimes not be comprehensive when people are doing their evaluations. And especially they're asking folks to do API scalability tests because they're seeing that a lot of customers, when they're doing high volumes of VM disk operations, it's actually leading to significant performance issues, especially when they're doing at scale operations. So they are warning that people should use as realistic conditions as possible when they're testing, and really do the right type of load testing on the platform when they're doing their evaluations. The third thing they talked about here is that customers sometimes overlook backup and failover planning because they're coming from the VM universe. And then they find, because they're running in a container environment, that they can't actually restore, just the way the Kubernetes works, so they can't actually restore their VM or app to the previous point. And so they are asking to kind of think about properly defining kind of the RTO, RPO, and not just kind of relying on default snapshots and things like that. And finally, the last thing is that they pointed out the fact, and this gels with the fact that we are seeing, everybody's running on multiple clouds, they're running hybrid deployments, so that it leads um, it leads me to believe that there are most organizations who are running multiple and have multiple storage investments and therefore have multiple CSIs, which actually will lead to incompatibility or different kinds of platform updates and upgrades. And if you forget to do that, or if you don't do it across all of them at the same time, security concerns and such. So most of this was not new information, I guess, for those of us in the biz. But we do seem to find that these are actually some of the big reasons our customers buy Portworx. But it was nice to see Kubernetes vendors now start to talk about this, because a lot of our customers kind of find out a little late in the game, right? And kind of wish that they would have had this conversation with us before losing a bunch of time and effort and coming to this conclusion that, hey, maybe this is not the best option. So it's nice to see folks like Red Hat and some of the bigger Kubernetes vendors start to educate customers about this a little earlier, so that we can prevent this type of slides and have the whole pitfall um, mitigation that needs to get done late in the game. Jay, one of the you mentioned as a favorite conversation that you had was
Obviously, anytime, anyone should go out to YouTube, look this one up as well. And Brian from NVIDIA talked about how they built their developer platform and got away from that manual provisioning we saw in that survey earlier, which is huge, right? Like that's a benefit to them, but also you see, like for me, another thing that was a takeaway, right, is the get out of that uh, the manual provisioning, but then also for the infrastructure team. So actually, for on Brian's team is to get the zero downtime upgrades. Let things like actually how you expect it to work, right? It's cloud native. We're developers are developing. Don't let downtime or upgrades to Kubernetes or hardware or anything interrupt what they're doing. So that was one of the big benefits. Obviously, there was more in this interview, but the two things that stuck out to me was like, hey, build that platform, let them do what they need to at the speed of developers, and then also now provide that zero downtime and in the back end. So there's benefits on kind of both sides of the house there.
NVIDIA can't stop work. Come on. All right. So I think this is probably a good place to start taking questions, folks. Let me see what's in the pipe here. All right, so this might be a good place to start. Do you have customers running in production today on VMs running in Kubernetes? Anyone want to take that?
No, we're not. We're not going to answer that question. Yeah, yes, absolutely. We have customers doing it today. We have a ton of customers, and they're not the customers that you would think. It's not the most advanced places. We have manufacturing, we have healthcare, we have a lot of financial service customers that are doing this. Again, this is not some untested science experiment. This is something that works in production, and probably a lot of things that you interact with on a daily basis have some form of tech that is running on this platform that have had a lift and shift from
Mhm.
VMware over to Kubernetes, and you probably don't even recognize that it's working that way on the back end. There's a lot of customers that are out there doing it, and so there's some keynote ones that you can go and find. I'm not going to mention them here. That you got to do a little bit of research. We can't baby bird spoon feed you the whole stuff, but go out there and look. But there are customers that are actually doing this, and the majority of them we are supporting in that environment for exactly what Kamala mentioned earlier about the CSI. You can go and run CSI, but you're going to run into issues. You're going to have problems with if you have multiple storage vendors and being able to use the CSI. Guess what? All of your automation has to take into account that CSI is different for every storage platform that you're using. Well, that hinders what you can do. You have the inability to scale. You have the inability to match capabilities across the storage platforms. That's the big issue, and it's not necessarily just a developer problem. It's an operational problem, right? So when I can't get the same kind of snapshots from storage A, storage B, or storage C, that creates an issue. Or God forbid, I want to use local drives, right, and local NVMe devices to be able to provide in this, and pair that with what I've got in my SAN fabric. What am I going to do there, right? So this all creates differences and creates inequalities between the storage, and that's where Portworx is able to come in and help and create that equality of storage capability across all of those vendors, including cloud. I know that's a bigger answer, Kamala, but I felt like I needed to jump in there. One more point as well. Insidious67 is actually John Owings' gamer tag. So if you want to look for him, you can find him under that tag.
Okay. Um, the next question that we have, and Jo, this one is for you. I don't think we'll get to the other one, so we'll close it out with you. Does Portworx assist with data migration, or does the Kubernetes vendor own that? Do I work with them?
Yes. The answer is yes to both of those. Yes,
Ah,
work with the Kubernetes vendor, but also work with
okay.
Portworx, right? So we
Okay.
announced at KubeCon an ability to kind of speed up those via like some backend Xcopy commands. Basically, right now, it's kind of like at the speed of how fast you could copy the data over the network, even if it's going to the same storage array, right? It's like out to the network and back down. Not super fast. And what we're able to do now is kind of do on the back end is just copy that data over and make that fast and quick. I think the official marketing name is like fast migration or quick migration. I don't know. Did we come up with a name for it, Kamal? This might be your thing, but the benefit to everyone out there who actually cares is that hey, now I can start moving VMs a lot faster. If I'm going from some other hypervisor over to uh, KubeVirt. So,
I see. Let me just check how we're doing on time. Okay, we have 1 minute. Is that enough to answer the question? What's the biggest hurdle when moving VMs to Kubernetes? Or, or is that just too big to address right now?
Oh, come on, that's not. Again, you've heard me say the whole time. That means people aren't listening to us, Kamala. It's not an insurmountable hurdle, right? The biggest issue you're going to face most likely is skills gap, right? We talked about that
Mm,
earlier. That's the piece you have to focus on. Maybe they asked this question before that. I don't know when it came up in the queue, but that's the piece that you have to look at, right? And really understand where are your folks at, right? And program to that. Make sure we actually did a whole presentation on this for the Red Hat Summit Connects that we did 18 or 19 Red Hat Summit Connects across North America. We did some around the world as well. But we talked about this, right? And that skills and basically making sure that everybody's on the same page from a technical perspective, and rising tides raise all boats, right? So being able to pick up another skill like Kubernetes management, going out and getting your CKA or other things like that will ultimately help you in the market from a personal perspective, being a professional in this space. And so there's a lot of ways to influence, basically incentivize and basically get people around that, filling that skills gap. But that's the number one thing. The other things you're going to do, you got to find the right partners, right? Go arm in arm to deliver that solution. And you got your Kubernetes vendor, you got your VAR that you're working with, and you're going to come in and basically deliver those things. And it's building that partner base that'll solve all the technical stuff. It's the skills piece that you have to focus on and make sure that you're taking care of your team and that you're building those resources up internally.
That's actually a great place to wrap, folks. And thank you for um, excellent responses and insights, Nathan and Jo. Really appreciate your being able to join us today. I thank you all, the audience, for joining us today, and joining us for this journey as we took you through our data and the insights that we've been able to gather over the last few months. Look forward to seeing you guys at events or at some of our other webinars. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.